You step up, shake someone's hand, and hear their name perfectly clearly. But by the time the handshake breaks, maybe 3 seconds later, the name is completely gone. You immediately drop into that quiet panic, nodding along to whatever they're saying, while privately diagnosing yourself with a terrible memory. The instant disappearance of a name reveals your brain's primary function as an active, highly selective data categorizer. It is a filter, not a bottomless storage bin. To understand why this specific piece of information vanishes so reliably, we have to slow down those 3 seconds and trace the exact path a spoken name takes as it tries to enter your mind. This path reveals the encoding bottleneck. Your brain operates with a gauntlet of specific hurdles that any new piece of data must clear if it wants to survive. Mapping this bottleneck shows that losing a name represents an ancient biological protocol triggering exactly the way it's supposed to in a modern setting. The process begins in the first millisecond, when the spoken name hits your ear and enters the system as raw auditory data. Immediately, it hits the first hurdle, arbitrary labeling. Your brain naturally locks on to experiential data, like a person's profession or a bizarre story they tell, because those fit neatly into your existing knowledge structures. A name lacks built-in meaning or narrative. Without that inherent context, your brain's initial encoding of the word is incredibly weak from the start. This weak auditory label then has to compete with the overwhelming visual presence of the stranger standing right in front of you. Humans prioritize visual traits over words. We possess a specialized brain region dedicated entirely to recognizing faces. Scanning a new face requires immense power. The brain diverts energy toward that visual task, starving the verbal node and pushing the name out. At this stage, dropping the name demonstrates that your system is prioritizing millions of years of evolutionary survival wiring over a modern social construct. While your biological hardware processes the face, your internal mental software deals with the immediate pressure of the social environment. This introduces the third hurdle, divided attention. During an introduction, you are calculating your posture, worrying about your impression, and planning your next sentence. Running these overlapping thoughts simultaneously creates cognitive overload. This traffic jam, especially common in overactive minds, physically blocks the name from crossing the threshold into permanent storage. Even if the name slips through the noise, it faces a final hurdle. For any new information to stick, the brain must forge an association, linking it to something already familiar. The rapid speed of a standard introduction denies your brain the necessary processing time. The window expires before you can consciously build a visual or trait association. Without that associative hook tying it down, the name remains unanchored, isolated, and entirely random. When social anxiety combines with a rapid pace, the brain is deprived of the focus and time required to properly secure isolated verbal data. The 3-second autopsy reveals the full sequence. The name arrives as meaningless data, is overshadowed by facial hardware, hits an overloaded mind, and runs out of time to find a hook. When faced with random, unattached, and useless information, the brain ruthlessly discards it to maintain overall operational efficiency. Easily losing a name signals a highly efficient biological filter protecting itself from cognitive clutter. Since your brain is programmed to delete this data by default, remembering a name requires consciously and actively overriding your biological settings. To succeed, you must intentionally slow down the pace of the introduction and force a mental association, giving your brain the necessary time to turn an arbitrary label into meaningful data. Human memory functions as an elite system with strict operational rules. Success in social interactions requires understanding these protocols rather than fighting human nature.